Hey there. I'm excited to announce this to you today. This is what you've been waiting for in your spiritual quest. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm finally ready to announce it that it's ready to go. It's the Grief to Growth Community Circle. Now, this is a sanctuary where like-minded souls are united in their journey through grief and towards personal transformation. It's more than just a place, it's a beginning, it's a commitment to growth and understanding. Here you're finding not just a community, but you're entering a circle of trust and depth. You're going to engage with interactive coursework. You'll dive into exclusive podcast episodes and partake in discussions that illuminate the path from mourning to empowerment. This is a realm where every question is honored and every individual's journey is validated. To be part of this exclusive circle, visit us at grieftogrowth.com/community or look for the chat icon at the bottom of every page on the main website. Remember that entry is a privilege because I want to ensure that every member is as dedicated and genuine as you are. You must apply to join, but the journey within is worth every step. So go ahead and join us today. Check it out, grieftogrowth.com/community, and I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Grief to Growth. I'm your host, Brian Smith. And today I've got with me Francis Key. We know her as Frankie. If you've listened to me for any amount of time, you've heard me talk about the team books. I refer everybody to them. And Frankie's been on the show a couple of times before. So today we're going to talk about the team books and kind of be even beyond that. So in case you don't know her, she's the author of a series of books called The Team, which were channeled by her mother, who is deceased and passed into the next life. And Frankie channeled those books, and she'll tell us how those came about. She's also written a book called In the Company of Souls, which is about the spiritual journey that her family has been on, she and her extended family, and a book called The Train to Hofhausen. And they all talk about spiritual growth. The Train to Hofhausen is a novel and talks about it from a fictional point of view, but they all talk about this idea of spiritual growth and how we're all here as a team. We happen to be recording this in October of 2023, where we're going through a lot of turmoil in the world. So I think it's a great time to talk about something comforting and something that kind of takes us to the next level. So with that very short introduction, I want to welcome to Grief to Growth, Frankie Key.
Hello. Hello, Brian. Hello, everybody. I'm always thrilled to talk on Brian's show because I know he has such an in-depth understanding of the insights that came through in these 4 books. All of this occurred 13 years ago, starting 19 days after my mother had died. And I was on an airplane going to New York to see where 2 of my daughters at the time lived, to visit them. And as I looked out the window of the plane, we all know how inspiring that vista is when we look out at the clouds. And I just spoke to her from my heart in my mind, and she answered me. I heard her in my mind, but I also felt that I heard her audibly. So this kind of communication went on throughout the flight, and I pulled out a paper and pencil because I'm a writer and I've always have one handy, and I wrote down what she said. And the topics quickly moved from personal feelings and situations in my life that I was bringing up to her, even regrets that I was expressing to her, things I wish I'd said and done differently, better. And it moved into universal themes. And little did I realize that what I thought was this amazing experience of communication that would occur on an airplane one time in my life would go on for years, ending up writing these 4 books of spiritual insights. There's about 100 of them. And the first book was out within 3 weeks because it completely absorbed my every waking and sleeping moment. The primary theme of all the books is one of her first statements to me, which was, "You are not alone. You're not even functioning as one person. Nobody is. For you are a member of a team, a spiritual team as close to you as breathing." In book 1, she made many essential points, but they're like little seeds, little nuggets buried along the way. And all the other books seem to develop them in much deeper levels. The first book was clearly her personality, her voice, her energy, her playfulness, her use of analogies like a teacher, which she was, school teacher. Mm-hmm. The subsequent books, it was obvious that other teammates were coming in because we all belong to our own spiritual team. And within that team are souls of varying expertise. And this expertise is blended so that this team can operate. The comparison is given in book 1. It's very much like a company on Earth, where everybody has a role, everybody has a skill. You have the artistic director, you have the marketing person, you have the one who knows how to fix the lights if they go out in the building. So everybody has something they can contribute, and we can call on these members of our team to work through us, to give us abilities that we might not have at the moment. So some of us are in this lookout tower of the soul, and then some of us are boots on the ground, and we alternate places, and sometimes we're together in one side or the other. And there's many more locations than just this physical earth. Everything's not neatly divided into the physical earth and the other side as if it's all black and white. It's a very infinite universe with many locations and dimensions, all actually, she says, superimposed upon each other. We talk about the Big Bang coming from one little dot. Well, everything is in that one little dot. It looks a certain size, but actually everything is layered one upon the other and grouped into a unified point. So we function within these teams, and these teams overlap with other teams, which overlap with other teams, and so it is. So everything is built upon each other and accomplished. So as I thought today a lot about what was best to bring out among these extremely layered, informative, condensed chapters of these books, I felt like we're all so aware of international events. We're all feeling very emotional, and we're having reactions of good and evil and wrong and right and do this or don't do this. It's been going on for quite some time, but it comes to a certain peak. These waves occur, and it's certainly occurring again. So I wanted to kind of address that topic of these extreme contrasts that we witness. And to begin that, I wanted to just sort of have a brief moment of prayer or meditation or focus where we all sort of come together and lift our thoughts more into the lookout tower of the soul, so we can have a vaster perspective, because this linear perspective is a very emotional one and sometimes a very narrow one. So if we could take just a moment and enter the lookout tower of the soul, pause and raise our inner eyes to this lookout tower where our teams reside, and embrace their perspective, which is to see all events as part of the tapestry of human evolution towards love and unity. And so it is. Now, it is a very turbulent and also transformative time in human history. And I've asked Brian to play a recording of my mother speaking Um, I'm going to ask him to play it one time, and then I'll tell you how that recording came to be. And then maybe we'll listen to it one more time.
Right, sounds good. Let me go ahead and share my sound so everybody can hear it.
I'm speaking to you as the member of a team that believes that the human race is preparing for a tremendous change, a change that may come in a form too beautiful to describe or too frightening to consider.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, something I want to tell you about today. My podcast platform, Buzzsprout, has recently made it easier for me to allow you to support me financially. Go to www.grieftogrowth.com/subscribe. That's grief2growth.com/subscribe. And once you're there, you can sign up to support me financially. Now, you can do it for as little as $3 a month, or of course, as much as you'd like. If you do that, you'll get access to bonus episodes, and you'll see those in the regular feed. They'll have a lock on them. But when you become a subscriber, you'll actually get access to your own private feed, and you'll be able to listen to the regular podcast along with the bonus podcast for the subscribers. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for sharing the podcast. And I want to thank those of you who support me financially. Have a great day, and on to the episode.
Okay, so this recording came to me several years after my mother died. I had written book 1 and 2, and a friend sent me a recording of her playing the piano before she passed away. I think about a year before she passed away in 2010. We took her to my friend's recording studio to play all her favorite songs on the piano, really pop tunes from the 40s mostly. And because we wanted to have them preserved. She was in her 80s. We weren't aware she was sick at the time. And she passed of cancer, but she had not been diagnosed with anything then. But she was in her older years, and we wanted that recording. So we took her, and we all sat with her by the piano. We sang along at times. We had a good time. We were there about 45 minutes maybe, and then we all left. So when my friend Gina sent me the recording, I listened to the music, and when it came to the end, there was another track, and that was on it. It sounds like she's reading from something. We don't quite know what to make of it. I have a dog sitting here. You might hear her bark. We investigated, my family and I and my friend Gina, and tried to find the source of the recording, but we couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. She didn't say it that day. She played the piano and left. She had no reason to speak of anything of that nature. So I got this recording, and I had been writing about this team and writing about her message from the team, and to hear her voice say that, I'm surprised, that I didn't just pass out or pass away right that moment from shock myself. And every time I hear it, I'm just blown away. We don't know exactly where it came from. It's very mysterious to us. It's been suggested that her energy and the team's energy tagged it onto the end of that recording, which is, in spite of all the miraculous things that I've witnessed and seen in my life, it's pretty hard to even accept that idea. But nonetheless, there it is. And it did come to us several years after the team books were written. So if you would play it one more time, Brian.
Yeah, sure. Hold on 1 minute. Let me share my sound.
I'm speaking to you as the member of a team that believes that the human race is preparing for a tremendous change, a change that may come in a form too beautiful to describe or too frightening to consider.
And so, in thinking about her words and looking at the events of today, and knowing that this came to us in a very powerful and unusual way, I've picked up book 3, and I've gone to the chapter called All Hands on Deck. And I've always said to Brian, I'm just a person talking about these books, unless I'm actually reading from the book, because I'm a student or a scribe. I'm not really the author. I'm not really capable of the complexity of this kind of material. But several times throughout the book, a number of times throughout the book, but 2 I'll mention, the words all hands on deck are used. In book 1, it's stated, it's all hands on deck for humanity, and that's one of the reasons I'm able to communicate with you right now in this way. And in book 2, it says, now is an all hands on deck time in human history. And she goes on to describe that when the call goes out, all hands on deck on a ship, it means everybody come out of the hold wherever you are and go to your places, get to where you're assigned to be, and be ready to fulfill your post. So she says that what holds us back from coming out on all hands on deck, like when we receive this call and we think, well, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to be? And she said, imagine the state of mind when such a call rings out. There must certainly be some who hesitate, afraid of what might be awaiting for them on deck. They're below, working below perhaps, and they're afraid to go on deck. Others may be eager for a new adventure. Some may freeze in confusion, wondering should they go or stay. Some might drag their feet, feeling very attached to the familiar task they've been doing. Some may snap to attention. Some may want to be part of the excitement and abandon a position they've been assigned to, where they actually need to stay. Those who are heavily laden with tool belts, hats, coats, or other burdens will have to have time to extricate themselves, much as a firefighter must stop to remove heavy attire when he finishes his work in the fire and moves on to another task. So she says, if we're too preoccupied with all this clutter and all these things in our lives, she gives the analogy, you taking time to fix your lipstick because it's crooked. I mean, she has a lot of humor in what she writes. Mm-hmm. It's going to trip you up in taking your rightful place as in your team to do your work. She said, some are terrified of the winds above. We are less useful than someone who isn't bogged down by these things. There's just no time to waste on someone who's pulling themselves out of the hold. If you can't come now, come when you can, for the show must go on with us or without us. So what is this show? What is this work, really? All through the books, it says we cannot address anything outside ourselves unless we do the inner work. We have to address the inner violence before we can address the outer violence. It says that when we look at these terrible conflicts, these global political wars and horrible things that go on, that we're all part of those current events, because every thought that we've had or action that we've taken of a revengeful, violent, or angry nature in this lifetime or a past lifetime has contributed to that violent event. We want to blame others. We want to point fingers. But we have all contributed with everything we've ever done and thought in any lifetime. We've all contributed to everything that occurs. We're part of the violence, some more than others. It doesn't mean we literally at this time would commit those kinds of acts. I personally don't know anybody who would commit such acts. However, any time in our life where we did have those impulses has gone into a vibrational sphere of that energy. And that is what others are drawing upon. And I think that's why the whole teaching of the vibrational spheres in Book 2 is so essential to understanding this kind of thing. You're well aware of it, I believe.
Yeah,
Brian.
but for the people that aren't aware of it, talk about that concept, because, and I want to just interject here for a moment. The team books, there, as Frank and I were talking before we got started, they're so deep. So we're going to try to bring people along. But I want to say that this perspective is, without exaggeration, totally changed my life, the way I think about things. And this idea that we are all responsible for these actions, even though we feel like we aren't individually. So let's talk about the spheres and how we contribute to those.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm really excited to tell you about my latest ebook. It's 4 lessons that you can learn from the near-death experience without going through all the trouble of dying to learn them. I've been studying NDEs for several years now. I am completely convinced that not only are they 100% real, but that there's some very universal wisdom that we can get from the near-death experience. And I've distilled that down in this book into 4 short lessons. And I've also given you all the reasons why I believe that NDEs are absolutely real. So go to www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons to pick it up for free. www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, in Book 2, the vibrational spheres are described as our thoughts, which become actions, which become energies that go out beyond this earth, join magnetically to other thoughts of the same kind, eventually becoming part of enormous spheres that are comprised of these specific types of vibration. As a result, there exist throughout the universe countless spheres of these thought collections. And each one of us is connected to them through our unique vibrational alignment. In a sense, they are storehouses of varying degrees of energies that we've all contributed to and we all have access to. So as a result, there exist spheres of love, anger, kindness, violence, forgiveness, peace, conflict, fear, mercy, joy, every possible form of energy, each floating like gigantic bubbles with unique shapes and sizes between all dimensions. And all of us are contributing at any given moment to these spheres with our own being, our own essence, what we're thinking, what we're doing, what we're talking about, what we're spending our time on. And we're always pulling from them. And she says that it's really remarkable how huge energies beyond what you would normally expect, like a person who's able to do something they never dreamed they could do. Say they were physically strong enough to lift a car off someone, or they're able to, I don't know, just get up and make a presentation when they have a terrible fear of speaking in public, and somehow they were able to do this. It's because we draw on these spheres where all the energy of courage, for example, resides, or strength or heroism. We draw upon them, and so we can become greater than ourselves. We're so tiny. I mean, we all think about that in this vast universe. Who are we? This tiny little being, really, this speck on a speck on a speck. However, we have the only reason we have that we are more than a speck on a speck is because we're connected to such vastness. So we pull in this energy of love, or this energy of forgiveness, or this energy of kindness. Even when we think we can't possibly do it, we find it, and it's because it's a power greater than us. When we meditate, if we have an experience of bliss, all that bliss goes into a sphere of bliss, and others pull down from that and use it and experience it and live it. But the opposite happens too. Terrible waves of anger and hatred and revenge take over people, and they're tapping into these spheres that everyone has contributed to little by little throughout time. And so a wave of revenge and a wave of brutality takes over an individual because they've tapped into that. So the responsibility we have is tremendous to really monitor what we're contributing to these spheres. And she points out, we can't just beat ourselves up, but we want to be aware. When we have an impulse in ourselves, we just want to be able to go, oh, there it is. Oh, that's that. That's that judgment. Oh, that's revenge. Oh, that's because as soon as you catch it, even if it's little, even if it's very small, even if it's a nudge, it starts to lose its power. When you can name it and shift it.
Yeah. I love that, because it gives us, it cuts both ways. We know we're not alone. We know that we always have a team, and we can draw on the team strength and that, but it also gives us a sense of responsibility. So when we look at it in the world and we see what's going on, we have to also realize that we do contribute to that. And I was talking with someone just yesterday who was talking about, how can a loving God, have these things happen? How can these things be happening when God is supposed to be loving? And I'm like, but we created this. This is the result of free will, that we've all collectively created the world that we live in.
Yeah. Yes. And so as we look at these vibrational spheres, we take responsibility for what we've put into it, and we literally focus on moment by moment through our day, linking up with the highest spheres that we possibly can. Again, not beating ourselves up when we're in a rut, when we're having a tough time, because if we're taking up our energy and time in some kind of self-loathing and self-condemnation, that alone is counterproductive to what we're trying to do.
Right.
She speaks a lot about overcoming remorse, overcoming guilt, and leaving behind our condemnation of ourself, because that is a type of inner violence. And that inner violence can spill out and be used as outer violence. She points out that everyone that we see is either a past, present, or future version of ourselves. We may see, tremendous love and compassion and kindness. That may be a version of ourselves today, or it could be who we've been in the past, or it could be something we aspire to in the future. But the uglier things of the world, too. We have, past, present, or future, known this. And of course, we want to take control of our present, which will ripple into our future. So we want to avoid being part of any of that. So it begins with understanding that what we're seeing right now, for example, with the Hamas and Israel situation, is a cycle of revenge. And perhaps some of us have felt revenge in our lives. I know I have had that experience, and I'll share here, which I don't often share, but I want you to understand that I really know of what I speak. There was an incident long ago in my life where a gun was held to my head, and it was a very violent incident. And after that, I had a period of time of revengeful feelings. I was a much younger woman, but it was amazing to me the degree of fury and thoughts of hoping that person suffered, and literally just revenge on that person. I'm no longer that person because I've had this transformation in my thinking for so long. But what I've come to see is that because I want to disentangle myself from that energy, from that loop of revenge, because I never want to have to experience that kind of thing again, because I'm calling it to myself with these constant loop thoughts of revenge. Mm-hmm. I have come to see that when these individuals come into our minds who have deeply hurt us, the highest thing for us to do is to wish them, well, two things. First of all, I hesitate to use the word forgive in the sense that we often use it, because sometimes things are so painful and so huge that there's almost something else needed than the word forgive. Mm. It's in the books, but it was also somebody posted something recently, and I thought they explained it so well. They gave the analogy of Jesus on the cross saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And it's the realization that Jesus didn't say, "I forgive you." Jesus said, "Father, forgive them." As if he were turning over this great, cruel atrocity. He was turning it over to universal law, turning it over to the Father, turning it over to something even higher than his physical self. Knowing that universal law knows how to handle these things. We know that in the life review, we see and feel everything that we've experienced and that we've done to others. There is a law that takes care of these things. And so that kind of forgiveness, if a person cannot say, "I forgive you," they can say, "I give you to those who can bring you to universal law and teach you so that you can be fully healed." And that is the second thing we want. We pray for the healing of the perpetrators. We pray for their healing and their enlightenment. People I've said this to say, "Well, I don't want that person to have healing and enlightenment. I just want them to suffer forever." Mm-hmm. Then they simply do exactly what we're seeing in the world. This loop of revenge continues. We want healing and enlightenment for everyone. So this can never occur again. this pain will never be inflicted again. So I have learned to do those two things, to say, I forgive you, in the sense I know that there is something in place that handles these things beyond what I personally can handle. And secondly, I pray for your healing and forgiveness and enlightenment so that nobody else can be harmed in that same way. So this is what we're reaching for. And then when we see it play out politically in the world, we understand these vibrational spheres are taking over. These people are pulling down from these depositories of eons of time of anger. When we say, how could they do that? It's more than them. They're tapping into the fury of millennial before them. And we also see we can only ask that universal law attend to it. And we pray for everyone who's involved to be healed and to be enlightened. And then thirdly, we turn to the inner violence. We turn to the inner work, our own impulses, our own judgments, our own unkindness in thought or deed. And that's where our work is. That's where our power lies, is within what we can do within our own selves. Because collectively, it isn't a, like when she says on all hands on deck and coming up on the top of the ship and turning the rudder, it isn't one person who can turn that heavy rudder. It's many people. And she says it isn't even one team. It's many teams that turn the rudder of humanity's collective consciousness and future. Mm-hmm. So what we do matters. What we say, what we think, how we feel, how we act, it truly does matter. It's so easy to think, what difference does it make? I'm just one person. It truly, truly makes a difference.
Yeah, Frankie, as you were saying that, I thought about one of the hostages that was released, I guess, just yesterday. It was an older woman, and as she was being released, she reached back to the hand of her captive and she shook his hand. And I thought that image was so powerful, and it's in such a microcosm of what we can do as a world. Now, there are going to be people who are going to react to that negatively and say, I could never forgive someone who did what those people do. I don't want to forget. And I just feel so much for the people in Israel right now, because what Hamas did was beyond horrific. But that image of that woman, and I love the vibrational spheres, and I think about it's a beautiful image to me, that I can choose to contribute to this sphere, or I can choose to contribute to this sphere, and I can draw from this sphere, because as I'm drawing from it, I'm also contributing to it.
Yeah.
So I can choose which one I want to draw from and which one I want to contribute to.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know she did that. Yes, that's absolutely phenomenal. One of the things I wanted to point out was with this inner work, which clearly this woman has done and was able to make that choice. Or who knows, it could have been completely spontaneous. It came through her team, and her soul completely worked through her in an instant where she had no plan or intention whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But there's a section in the book that really speaks about self-condemnation as a form of inner violence, self-loathing. And we encounter this a lot, and I know you do a lot of counseling with people, and I think you come across that.
I see it a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty natural thing to happen in all our lives. So she points out something. I have always just found this to be so mind-blowingly wonderful. She says, one of the most important things to realize is that self-condemnation is rooted not in humility, but in pride.
Mm.
For it comes from the idea, I am too good to make such a mistake. Others can do such things, but not me. This ego or pride tells us we are not like others, that we're better than those kind of behaviors. But true humility tells us that we're all one, capable of great error as well as great beauty through our free will. Believe it or not, it takes more courage and more humility and more sincerity to forgive oneself than it does to punish oneself, because it requires us to go beyond our obsession about ourselves, including the kind of self-concern that keeps us focused on our mistakes. It requires that we care more about healing our wounds for the sake of becoming a stronger vessel for our team than directing that same energy towards self-condemnation. She says one must stay extremely self-absorbed to remain mired in a sticky vibratory sphere, giving up a great deal of time, thought, and energy in order to maintain this degree of self-contempt.
Yeah. I still remember reading that. I've read the book several times, and that's one of the passages that really sticks out to me. And as you said, I work with a lot of people that go through the self-condemnation, and I think sometimes feel like it's like a false sense of humility to say I'm such a bad person. I'm such a bad person. And what she's saying is exactly the opposite of that. When we do that, so forgiving ourselves, letting go of ourselves, it's for the sake, again, it's not just for our own sake, it's for the sake of our team, it's for the sake of the world. That's the selfless thing to do, is to forgive yourself. I think that's beautiful.
It is. She says, my love for humanity and my spiritual team is greater than my contempt for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when that scale tips, we can leave it behind. And we can accept, yes, like all people, I am capable of harm and I am capable of holiness. This is what's in the book, of great harm and great holiness. It's the great leveler. It levels everybody. It's an equal playing field. And it helps us reduce our attitudes of judgment. There, but for the grace of God go I. And also, I have been there. I have been there. And I'm not too good for that. I'm no better or no worse than anyone else. And when it does make us humble, and it helps us to stop the constant judging, which is human nature. We go to revenge, we go to retaliation, we go to judgment. So these are this is the inner violence that we want to work on, so that it doesn't spill out into greater violence.
Yeah, and as you said, that inner violence becomes outer violence, whether it's even the thoughts we think about ourselves. If we're condemning ourselves like that, then we're going to condemn other people in the same way.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Or if we can forgive someone else for doing the very same thing that we did, but we can't forgive ourselves. Now think about that. That's because we think, well, I'm too good for that. They can do that, but not me.
Yeah.
They can do that and be forgiven, but not me. So it's a real freedom, and it surely takes humility just to be there. And then once that field is leveled, then you think, okay. And she says, when that guilt or that remorse or all those feelings come up, that self-condemnation, say, I don't have time for you. I have better things to do. I have work to do. People need me. People need my light. People need my energy. The world, I have better things to give the world than this. Mm-hmm. So thank you. I've worked with you enough. You're an illusion. I appreciate what I've learned from you, and I send you on your way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm busy. Try it. Sometimes you have to say it out loud, but it can really, really shift things around. There's something else she has, and I couldn't find the book. I couldn't find the passage. For some reason, in the 4 books, there's an exercise where she says to, whenever we want to advise another or criticize another, to use our own name. So if I want to look at these people who are doing the things that are happening in the Middle East right now, and I want to say, how can you do that? Why are you seeking revenge? That I need to literally say, Frankie, why are you seeking revenge? And she gives another exercise where if I were speaking with you and we were giving each other advice about something, instead of saying, Brian, have you thought, Brian, I think you should do this, or Brian, I want you to realize this, I would say, Frankie, speaking to you, call you by my name.
Mm-hmm.
And you would say, Brian, when you speak to me. I've done this with a person. It's really kind of mind-blowing.
Mm.
Talking with a friend, about their life. And because everything in the book is promoting the idea that our influence upon each other is tremendous.
Yes.
That we really are one. We're parts of a whole. And what we do to another, we truly do to ourselves.
Yeah.
This is why revenge only leads to more revenge. What the alternatives to that are very hard to figure out, because we can hardly figure out what to do on a personal level,
right,
much less on a grand scale. We're in the process of spiritual evolution on the earth, and it takes more than a few people to tip the scales or turn the rudder.
Mm-hmm. We're in a time right now where I keep hearing the phrase as I watch the news, the world's on fire. It feels like it's crazy. And that passage from your mother, I hear a lot of channels saying something very similar right now. We're kind of at a tipping point. It could go well, it could go badly. Has your mother given you any more insight into what's going on or what we can do, or what do you have to say about that?
Not specifically, but I'm reminded of, my mother and I were together in a small metaphysical church called the Universal Church of Ontology when I was 12 until I was in my mid-20s, I think. And the teacher there, my mother and I and others would listen to her teach. And her name was Nikki Brown. And Nikki said one day, she gave us this analogy. She said, a spiritual student ran up to his teacher, and it was sort of put in the Buddhist fashion, living in a commune, living in what would that be called? Not a commune, but
Sangha?
Yes,
mm-hmm.
Living in that as a monk. So a monk comes up to his teacher and says, a being just appeared to me and told me the world is ending in 1 hour. What do we do? What do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher said, keep tending your garden and be sure you pull up all the weeds by the roots.
Mm.
So, of course, being in my 20s, that really stuck in my mind because I thought, and she went on to describe that if indeed the physical earth were to, have a nuclear war or some kind of terrible thing of that nature that would wipe out a large part of humanity, we simply tend our garden, We do what's before us. And the analogy of pulling up the weeds by the roots is we want to get as much inner work and awareness done as we possibly can. So it doesn't really change what we're called to do. We do what is in front of us to the best of our ability, and we do it with maybe a sense of urgency and greater commitment, which can only be good for us in the long run. I think humanity has brought itself a number of times to this brink. This is not the first time. And the best thing we can do is to pull up the weeds by the root, tend our garden, which is our lives, and work on the inner violence. Connect as often as possible, whether you do this through meditation, prayer, maybe somebody just does it while they're gardening. It can happen in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Connect as often as you can with your team, with these higher vibrational spheres. And if we're called to do something very practical, and some of us are, step forward and do it. This doesn't mean we're supposed to be cut off from practical work in the world. There are many opportunities people might have to hands-on do something for someone. And a gesture like that woman made, turning around to touch the hand of that person, we can look for more of those kinds of gestures in our own life. Is there someone we are estranged from that we could? It doesn't mean we have to bring them back into our life 100%, but could we heal something? Is there something that we could heal? Because by doing that, we're going to contribute to these vibrational spheres of healing, of forgiveness, of peace. We have to hold high a vision of peace in spite of appearances to the contrary. Keep the vision of that. We don't want to dwell on the opposite vision. We're told that the past, present, and future are really, not stretched out this way, but on top of each other. So everything we do in the present automatically ripples out. When you look at a pond, you drop the rock in. The ripples don't go in one direction. If you call that shore the future, they go the other direction too. You can call that shore the past. Whatever we do in the present affects the past and the future. It seems impossible to us, but it does. There's a lot of information in the books about that. And so all these alternatives are available to us. They're all strands of possibility. And yes, at any time, anything can go in any direction. I mean, we kind of know that. Yeah. We have choice, and anything, the dog over there right now could jump up and bark. And so far, she's been really good. But the possibility is there. So all these possibilities exist, and we just want to align ourselves with the highest possibilities we can envision.
And I love what you talked about at the very beginning, that idea of lifting our eyes up and taking that higher perspective. And that's one of the many things I've gotten out of the book is trying to make that shift and to understand, because when we talk about the team, I can imagine people thinking, well, I don't feel like I'm on a team. I feel like I'm alone. I'm here doing this by myself. There's nobody helping me. And so how do we feel more connected to our team?
Well, when we come into this earth experience, a big part of the experience is sort of entering into a stream of illusion. Otherwise, we couldn't be here. couldn't live here. And part of that illusion is separateness from each other and even from nature, which we're not separate. I mean, the trees are literally, the plant life is literally breathing with us. They breathe in what we put out and we breathe in. We are literally, they're like an extension of our lungs. We are literally part of each other, but we don't even think about that. Most people don't even take a moment to walk out and think, I'm breathing with these trees. So separateness is a big illusion that we all embrace. And, you know, the phrase, fake it till you make it, sometimes just sitting, even though you don't feel it, it doesn't seem real, just sitting and acknowledging. It might help to have a prayer or something that you repeat, a mantra. I am not alone. I love to say that what is in the books. You are not alone. You're not even functioning as one person. Nobody is, for you are a member of a team. So I am not alone. I am not even functioning as one person. I love that concept. And I often say, join me. You know, Maya Angelou, she's so famous for that. And she says, when I go up on stage, I take everybody who ever loved me and everybody I've ever loved on stage with me. I just bring them all. They all come. All my ancestors, of course, all those I can't see and can see, every bit, they're all with me. They're all with me. I never come alone. So remind yourself of that. If you constantly think over and over and get that groove in the brain drilled in there, I'm alone, I'm not, that's what you will experience. But if you can begin even a little, 5 minutes a day, telling yourself, I'm not alone, I'm with a team, they're with me, you will become more aware of them and you will see signs of their presence. And when you get in a difficult situation, say to them, come with me, help me, speak through me, work through me. It's not all just you.
Yeah. And some of your team members are actually here too. So we've got team members that are in spirit, but we also have team members in the physical.
For sure.
Yeah.
And people have said, well, how many are there and where are they? Are they all in my family? I couldn't even begin to answer. I have no inside information on that. But it is said in the book that some of our team members are on the other side of the planet. And yet what they do ripples out and connects with us. Mm-hmm. And she gives the example of somebody waking up with an invention. That's coming from minds all around the planet, on the physical planet, that are working on that same invention. But that person is the one that got it, because all that is out there. It's like a stream floating above us, you know, that we can pull down. We pull down a melody. A person writes a song, you pull down a melody. This is music that's right, literally floating above our head that somebody was able to extract. So,
I just saw that concept just the other day, and I can't remember where I saw it. I thought it was really interesting. It's like once someone creates something or has a thought, it goes into this pool that we can all pull from. So again, we have this idea that all my thoughts are my own, and I'm creating all of them. But there's another idea that says these thoughts are out there, they're available, and we pull them in. So if you start to take that mindset, it really opens up your world into what's possible for you, because we can sit and tap into that infinite wisdom.
Absolutely. And it's not, and this is with the people who are right here upon the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how much more it is when you imagine the teams, multiple teams all throughout the universe overlapping and feeding into one another. truly tremendous, can kind of be too hard to fathom at times. But it is so helpful to take the time on a regular basis to enter the lookout tower of the soul. And you might use the analogy of going up in a plane where we look down and everything is, that's always an amazing thing to see the little tiny dots of humanity below. And it just broadens your mind, or perhaps you go up in your mind to a mountain, or perhaps you go right off the planet in your meditation and see this vast network to which we all belong and we're contributing. So our big task is within ourselves, but she cautions all through the books, don't wait until you think that you are some kind of level of perfection before you do anything anywhere in this world. A lot of times, just in the doing, you can raise your vibration, and you can be useful in some way, somewhere, at any point. We fall into this mistaken thinking of, I've got to get this lined up, and this has to be right, and this has to be done, and I have to, before I could possibly be spiritual.
Right.
Let it be messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just commit in your heart, and it will unfold.
Yeah, I do hear a lot of people talk about, well, one day I'm going to figure out what my purpose is, and when that day comes, then I'll actually contribute. But we can all contribute right where we are right now, by touching just the people that are around us. And again, I the images of the spheres has really stuck with me. The images of the higher self, that only a small part of me is actually incarnated. This was one of the first places I heard that concept was in the team book. So I've got my higher self that's still there, and I can connect to that. So we've got all these different things that we can connect to, and we can sit and we can choose. We can make a choice. I'm going to connect to that sphere. I'm going to connect to that sphere.
Yes. And what you just said is all through the books. It's so important that we have multiple aspects to our soul, just like we have many segments to our brain that do different things.
Mm-hmm.
And that only a part of us, some aspect of us is here connected, working with this body, not trapped in the body, not in the body. The body is inside the soul. And that's why the soul is so vast and connected with vastness. It's not some little tiny glimmery light that's stuck somewhere inside.
Yeah.
But this other part of us, these other aspects of us, are with our loved ones whom we grieve for and miss. We are together with them, and our body misses their body, but our souls are just as connected as ever they were. So, and not only that, other aspects of us may be right here on Earth, in other bodies, in other places, doing other things, and other aspects of us may be on the other side or in other dimensions. But the one that's right here, right now, has this assignment. And so, let's make the most of this assignment. Let's not give up before our time is finished. I know many people feel like they just want to exit the planet. Let me just stop the world. I want to get off.
Yeah.
And let's do our best to fulfill everything to the end. Amazing things happen. The difference a day can make, the difference a year can make.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I had that experience of that person that held me against my will and had a gun to my head. I remember about a year later, I was sitting I went to North Carolina, and I got to hear a friend of mine playing her fiddle in a public place. And I sat there, and I have a lot of musician friends. I'm a musician like you, love music. And many times I would watch people play and perform, and I was just thrilled with it and everything. But never before was I struck with, I almost didn't hear this. I almost didn't make it to this moment to get to hear her playing her fiddle. And the joy that went through me, and the gratitude and the appreciation and the awareness of, that I survived that, and that I get to have my life, and I get to fulfill my assignment, and I get to see these little tiny beautiful moments. I'm dog sitting, and here's another dog.
Oh, wow.
I get to help with my friend's dog, because we let's face it, people go through tremendously painful things, and in their state of grief, they don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So I encourage us all to fulfill our assignment, and to reach out and find those who can support us through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. It's interesting because as you were saying that, I was listening to Christian Sundberg, who has pre-birth memories, and he was at the IANS conference, and he used that same thing. I get to do this. And a lot of times we forget that we chose this to come into these bodies. We chose this life. We wanted this. We wanted an adventure. And I know people are going right now, I didn't choose this adventure.
You're right.
But we love the challenge when we get through something. We like to overcome. And I tell people, think about, I love sports. And I was talking to a friend the other day that loves football. I'm like, we put on pads, we go out, we risk our lives, we throw the other ball back and forth. We, grown men are fighting and knocking each other around. And we do it just because we can. I mean, yeah, we pay money, but we pay money because we like the joy of watching the challenge. And so when you start to look at life that way, and when something happens, you go, I wonder what this is about. What can I learn from this? How can I take this and transform it into something else? It makes it a little bit easier. It makes it a little bit more, has more of a sense of meaning, and it gives you a sense of challenge as opposed to giving up.
Yes. Yeah, I love the analogy of the sports, and in the books, the analogy is given of the surfer. Mm-hmm. I always use that one because the surfer, and I have all these son-in-laws who love to surf, they go out on that board, and yeah, it's nice to float on a placid sea and look up at the sky and whatever, but what they're really waiting for is the wave.
Yeah.
They're waiting for the wave. So the wave is where they can use their skills, and the waves of life are where we get to use our spiritual muscles, our spiritual skills, and the muscles we've conditioned in the workout gym for the soul, which is the earth. Mm-hmm. This planet, it's described to me, is for the purpose of developing compassion. Many things we develop here, but one of the biggest one is compassion for ourselves and for other people. Yeah. And this is why Jesus is so often held up as our greatest team leader, because of this compassion that was taught. You can either go with the Old Testament is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and the New Testament is, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do.
Right.
That we're being called to choose that higher way, not that old way, the old way of simple law and revenge.
That's a really good point. And as you said, I was thinking about what an opportunity that we have, with, again, what's going on right now, just what just happened in the last couple of weeks, and between Israel and Hamas, what an opportunity to learn to practice compassion. What a challenge, right? It's not easy. I mean, I think it's an advanced school. This is not kindergarten. This is advanced stuff, and so people we'll say, that shouldn't happen. Something that bad, shouldn't happen. There should be some sort of a limit, I guess, on it.
Yeah.
But that's what tests us. It's that again, that woman, that image is going to be so powerful of her reaching out, and it's going to cause a lot of controversy because some people are going to say, well, you can't forgive those people, and look at what they did, and we have to protect ourselves, and and it's complicated, right? It's not an easy solution. There is no easy solution to this, which is what which is going to force us all to grow, because we've got to figure out, how do we handle this?
Yes. We've had a tremendous amount to force us to grow, haven't we?
Yeah.
In the last 10, 15 years, really, in this world, in this country. It's almost like everything's just put out there for us to witness, and some of us to participate directly in.
Mm-hmm.
So this earth has a vast array of levels of consciousness upon it, everything from the Hitlers to the Mother Teresas,
Mm-hmm.
and everything in between. And that is why it's a school of compassion. As I understand it, there's other places that don't have this wide contrast, where things are much a smaller contrast.
Yeah.
Much more peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
We'd all like to just kind of live in a commune where everybody's peaceful and kind, and that kind of is the vision that we carry. But it is true that this huge contrast teaches us things we could never learn, perhaps anywhere else.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting. I never really looked at it that way, but that's absolutely true. Because of the great contrast in consciousness here, that's what presents the opportunity for so much growth, because we look at other people and it's like, are you even a human being?
Right. Yeah. Yes. And we don't those levels of consciousness we don't connect with. She says over and over, if you are at a level right now where you are kind and compassionate, where you are understanding and gentle, just remember, you were not always so.
Mm.
There was someone who came and saw the light in you and reached in and awakened it. So we can't physically go and stop the things that people are choosing to do in all these places, but we can do the inner work, and we can set the example as best we can for our circle of influence.
Sure.
And we can spend time every day, even if it starts out 5 minutes a day, acknowledging that we are not alone, that we have a team, and being willing to accept and interact with our teammates more and more, beyond and those here. And things will unfold, people and connections. It's just amazing how things happen like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Frankie, we're coming to the end of our time. Remind people where they can reach you, where they can get the books. And I know we didn't get a chance to talk too much about your other books, but mention your other books as well.
Well, the other book I put out recently was In the Company of Souls, which is a collection of 90 different stories of experiences that I and other members of my family and friends have had of a spiritual nature throughout our lives. And I really started collecting these so that my grandchildren, great-grandchildren would have them in the future as a family anthology. But then I thought, I'm going to put it out there publicly. I think it'll mean something to other people too. That's In the Company of Souls. And then my novel, The Train to Hoffhausen, Hoffehusen, a mythological city in Germany. The Train to Hoffhausen is put in fictionalized form, this concept of the past, present, and future all being connected, and different aspects of our soul perhaps being in the same place at the same time sometimes. Yeah. In different human bodies. So it's a fictional thing. I've actually turned it to a screenplay and sent it off hoping somebody will make it into a movie, but We'll see if that ever happens.
Yeah.
So franciskey.net is my personal website, has all those books listed on it. Francis with an ES, franciskey.net. And the teen books, exactly just them, which has a lot of excerpts of the books you can read on there anyway, without even buying the books. And all the interviews that I've had are on there. That is The Teen Books with an S, theteenbooks.com.
I want to just quickly mention In the Company of Souls, because it is a collection of 90 stories. So again, people might say, I'm not experiencing this stuff myself, and your family has had extraordinary experiences. But I think as people read it, they'll start to realize, oh, yes, something like that happened to me, or I know something like happened to someone else. So I'm really glad you put that out, because I think sometimes people don't recognize that we do get these glimpses of the team coming through. And once you start to open your eyes to it, you start to see it more and more, and we can start to peer a little bit beyond the veil.
Right. You might be, something has happened, but you dismissed it as a coincidence, or something has happened and you felt it deeply, but perhaps it was a dream that came true, but you had never told anybody, so you weren't able to verify it. Things like that. Yes, I hope it opens people's eyes to the fact that this is really a natural part of life. It's not a freaky, strange part of life. It really is a natural thing.
It is. It really is. Well, again, Frankie, thank you so much for doing this again today.
It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, good to see you. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi there. I hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the podcast, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What questions came up for you? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? I invite you to visit us at grieftogrowth.circle.so. That's growth2 to continue the conversation with me and with other listeners. It's a space to sound off, to share reactions, and to go deeper into the topics from the show. I look forward to chatting more, and I hope to see you there.